welcome back to my series on building my N-scale switching layout. I'm just going to show you how I went from this basic frame to installing the foam base for the scenery and the tracks. So in model railroading, extruded polystyrene foam is commonly used for the scenery and the base. On this layout, because it's so narrow, it's only 13 inches deep, and it's got plenty of internal framing, which, as I showed you in the last episode, was designed to support itself on the shelf brackets. I didn't put down a plywood top on this. It just seemed like it would be overkill. So you really only need a couple basic things. And I am working outside in the garage today, so there is a bit of an echo. But working with foam can be a little messy, so I didn't want to do that inside. And to do the foam base, you really only need some basic supplies and tools. I am using 1-inch thick Green Guard insulation. It's available from Lowe's. I was able to find it in 2-foot by 2-foot sheets, although more commonly you'll find it in 4-foot by 8-foot sheets. And the tools you need to work with the foam are very simple. I decided to buy a foam cutting knife just because I anticipate doing a lot of scenery work, but you could get by with just a pocket knife for this step at least. I already had a rasp file. That can help with cleaning up some of the edges. And for the adhesive, you want something that is safe for foam. I'm just going with liquid nails. I needed to pick some up for some other home repair projects. And then you'll need a standard caulk gun for applying that. So I designed this so that it would measure 13 inches from the outside to the outside of the frame. And these are 1x3 wood beams, so they actually measure 3/4 inches deep, and that gives an interior dimension of 11.5 inches. Because I was able to get these in 2-foot by 2-foot sheets, it worked out really well that I was able to take one sheet and cut 2 pieces from it that basically filled most of the frame. And by doing that, there was very little waste of material. All I had left over was this little strip in between. So if you're designing your own layout, that's something you might want to think about, is what size materials are available so that you can make the most use out of them. And then once I had my bigger sheets cut and fit, all I had to do was cut this little piece to fill the remainder. And for me, the only challenge was adapting it around this miter, which, as I mentioned, if I had to do again, I would have done the 22.5-degree cuts on each piece, so it would have been a little smoother. But it's not a big deal. That's all going to get covered by scenery anyway, so you're not going to see it in the finished product. And then I still have the bulk of this second 2-foot by 2-foot sheet left. And in the next episode, we'll take a look at the track and scenery plan. But basically the rear portion and middle portion of this is going to be elevated. So I'll be able to cut smaller pieces out of that to build up the terrain that I need to make the landscape that I have in mind. And that will be covered in a later episode, because after I glue this board down today and let it dry, I'm going to start laying out the track and figuring out exactly how things fit in before I start cutting those pieces. So the actual cutting of the board is very simple. You can either use a pocket knife or you could use a foam cutting knife like I bought. And you'll also need a metal straight edge or something to guide your cut. You don't really have to cut the whole way through the foam. You basically just have to score it and snap it. And the cuts were a little ragged, so after I got the cuts made, I did have to take the rasp and just file down some of the edges to be smooth so they fit in the frame. I'm pretty happy how it came out. I mean, there are some gaps and gouges, but it's not going to matter when I fill this all in with scenery anyway. So the boards I had in place were just test fit for the time being. What I'm looking for here is just getting them relatively tight around the edges. Like I said, don't have to be perfect. And I want to make sure that they're catching the blocks that I'm going to use to glue them onto. So once I'm happy with how they fit in, I'm going to take them back out. And then when I glue them in, I'm going to be careful to put them back in the exact orientation that I test fit them in. Okay, hopefully when I build my next layout, I'll have a setup on a tripod or something that you can actually see me doing the work, but for now I need 2 hands to do the work. So I've applied the liquid nails to the surfaces that I want to glue to. It surely doesn't look neat and pretty, but hopefully it does the job. They say you have 20 minutes of work time from when you put the beads down. So for now I'm going to just press this down by hand. I will weigh it down for drying though, after I have all the pieces in place. Okay, and now I've got the liquid nails down for the second piece of foam board. Again, I'll just press that into place. And now I just have that little one to go. And now it's ready for the final piece of foam. And if you've done a good job with test fitting and trimming everything, this should drop right into place. But this is also why I only put the liquid nails down for one piece at a time, just in case I had needed to adjust anything. Thankfully I didn't. And the foam base is now done. And I just have it flipped over here to take a quick look, make sure everything's lining up where it should be with the blocks that I put in for gluing. I might have to press that down a little bit further to seal the gap, but I do want to try to keep it flush with the outer frame. Alright, so that was fun walking around the garage trying to find heavy objects to weigh this down. This is probably a little bit of overkill, but I just want to make sure that everything stays flush and in place while it dries. The liquid nails say they have 20 minutes of working time. It doesn't say anything about how long it takes to permanently set up. So I have video editing to do and another woodworking project to start today. So I'm going to just let this sit overnight. But the next video in this series is going to be the really fun one, because that's where I'm going to reveal my track plan and I'm going to start test fitting the track and running some trains. So thank you for joining me along this adventure, and I hope you'll tune back in to see how this switching layout takes shape. Thanks for watching.